Hey everyone, it's the Chaplain here coming to you with a little BBR Explained. This is a continuation of my series of the BBR rule set, and just for clarification, I noticed I haven't pointed it out beforehand. These are over BBR 3.0 rules. These were what were used in the tournament in September of 2020. There has been play testing of 4.0 rules, and some of them are just incredible additions to the game. I am excited to play them. So as those rules are published, these videos will be updated. However, this video, this next one in our series, is on Soviet mobile production and the Trans-Siberian Railway. I wanted to try to hit these two in one because one of them is really, really short. All right, you don't need a 2-minute video on a railway. So I'm actually going to open with that railway. Now, I'm trying to get this to stand up and then zoom in, and I didn't stand it up enough. If you have the BBR map, if you've seen it, if you own it, if you want it, anyway, there is a little railroad that goes from Moscow all the way into Amur. Actually, let me just help us out here. Just pick this up. You see that line? Goes from Moscow into Samara, into Novosibirsk, Tunguska, goes into Vinnytsia, Yakut, Buryatia, into Amur, and then poops out there into C-Zone 5. That is the Trans-Siberian Railway, and that is a very cool feature. Now, here's what it does as I try to calmly set that down. If Russia controls every part of that railway, all of those territories that I named, Amur, Buryatia, Yakut, Yenisei, Tunguska, Novosibirsk, Samara, and Moscow, they control all of them. They can move one unit from end to end or anywhere in between. That's pretty cool. So to start the game, right, you have a lot of infantry in Amur. You can start sending them over one by one straight into Moscow. You can send them into Tunguska and have them start coming into China. That would violate Japan's rules of don't walk into China. That's our fight. But all of that to say, you can move units around. You need to send some AAAs back home to Moscow? Send them over. You want to send a tank over to Amur? Do it. The Japanese have moved out. They're fighting China. You want to take out some stuff? You want to be offensive over there? Germany's not really a threat. Maybe they're doing Sea Lion. I don't know. So there's a lot of reasons to use the Trans-Siberian Railway. It's a really cool feature. It's a really neat way to move your units, your Russian units around. Now, if Japan or Germany or somebody... if an opponent disrupts any one of those territories that the railroad is in, it becomes inoperable. So keep that in mind. The next thing that I wanted to talk to you about is Soviet mobile production. Now, if you have the card, great. It's card 49. If you don't, it's on page 19 of your rule book down here at the bottom. I'm still zoomed in. That's why it's showing it like this. Mobile production. So, to represent the mobility of the Soviet production, minor complexes that are Russian can be moved to an adjacent Soviet-controlled... Did I just say adjacent? I might have said adjacent. It can be moved to an adjacent Soviet territory that's worth at least 1 IPC. So, I could move the Stalingrad factory to Caucasus. I could move it over to Kazakh or up to Samara or over to Tambov. If it was in Kazakh, I could not move it to Turkmenistan. It's worth 0. I can't do that. That's not a right move. You have 3 minor factories to start the game as the Russians, and there are many reasons to move your factory. More obvious in this particular setup. This is the 1942 setup. Excuse me while I adjust here. You can see this lovely little factory in the Ukraine has been taken over by the Germans. So now the Germans have a minor factory in Russian territory. They also have 3 IPCs because that territory is valuable. They also have that resource that's sitting there. Kind of a big loss for the Russians and the Allies in general. So, mobile production is a way to prevent your enemies from taking your factories, your miners. You can only move the minor factories. If you build another factory, you can move it, blah, 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 etc., etc. So, the way that it works is you can do it only when you are at war. So before the war starts, you can't move them. A minor industrial complex can move 1 space to an original controlled Soviet territory at the cost of 1 IPC on that game round. This has actually been updated. I believe it now costs 2 IPCs to move. Yes, the rule book says 2. You can move it at 2. It can only produce 2 units because you've moved it. It's not as fully powered as it was before. Unless it moves again, then its production is still at 2. Now, it negates the railway ability for that factory, and I haven't done a railway video yet, but every factory has an integrated railway. That'll probably be the next video. But it negates your railway ability for that complex on the turn. Again, you can't move it to a territory with 0 value. Each costs 2 IPCs, right? And damaged complexes may not be moved until repaired. So the Germans go and start bombing your factory. They do strategic bombing runs on it. It's damaged, you can't move it. A little bit of strategy in this video, and this is where some of my other videos are going to differ. Some of these things are, all of these things are, and you saw it in the Scramble video, completely subjective. If you're at war and the Germans are pushing, but they're not pushing very hard, don't move your factories. Unless you think that they could move hard into Russia later, I wouldn't move them. Now, I've seen games where veterans don't move their factories, and obviously they eventually get taken over. I've also seen games where veterans move their factories as soon as they're at war. They've got factories back here in Vologda and Novosibirsk and Samara just putting units into Moscow. Now, that's perfectly fine. Now, it costs money, so it's difficult to do that, but let's say the Germans are making a hard push into southern Russia. Let's say they're making a hard push into here. With the Germans having this factory here, it might be high time for you to start moving this Stalingrad factory away. Now, right now you're 2 spaces away from their factory. If you move it down here, you're 2 spaces away. If you move it back here, however, you're 3 spaces away. Makes it more difficult for them to potentially get to you and to get it from you. You're leaving Stalingrad, but at the same time, you're also keeping that factory from falling into enemy hands. Really not a lot of strategy involved in it. Don't let your enemy get it. Keep in mind, though, that every dollar you spend on it is not a dollar you're spending on the defense of Moscow. I don't think I've ever seen a game, and I could be wrong, and I know the vets will call me out on it because I know they've seen more than I have. I don't think I've ever seen a game where Moscow has not fallen. But you can delay that fall until turn 7 or turn 8 if you keep your factories out of enemy hands. That does mean giving up Leningrad eventually. That does mean giving up Stalingrad eventually. That might even mean giving up some of the stuff you have going on in the Middle East. But what you definitely don't want to do, is let those factories fall into enemy hands. That's what I want. You just don't want it to happen. So, there we go. That is Soviet mobile production and the Trans-Siberian Railway. I am the chaplain. I'll be praying for you.